What's up, guys? The Titans are 1-0 following the Monday night game against the Denver Broncos. It was a win, 16-14 on a game-winning field goal. It was a good game, but they stuck us in the second slot of the Monday night primetime game, so we were up a little bit late and a little bit tired, so we had to stop, get some herbal teas from Lawrenceburg Nutrition to give us some energy for the video. Let's get right into it.
So, looking back at that game, what a game to start the Titans seasons. It was full of anxiety, ups and downs. I mean, it was just a roller coaster ride. But would it be Tennessee football if we didn't have, that roller coaster ride throughout the game?
That's just kind of what I was talking about today. I mean, it's just what we're used to as Titans fans. Is even this year we're coming in thinking, one of the best teams in the NFL. Probably, most people probably still feel that way. I still feel that way, but it's just the way that the Titans start off to the season. They start off slow, and sometimes it's just how it is. I know last season they didn't really start off that way. It was a fun, easy win against the Browns, but the close games, the games that get you nervous and kind of excited, anxious, are the games that you remember more.
Let's be honest, though. That game shouldn't have been that close.
Oh, absolutely should not have been that close. No.
All right, so 3 missed field goals, a missed extra point.
Okay, I was about to correct you there.
So, really, we should have had
10 more points on the board.
10 more points on the board.
It could have been 23-7 originally.
Right.
23-14 would have been after they scored. But instead, we ended up being down 14-13.
Right. And the point I was going to make is, while we should have had 10 more points on the board, really, worst case scenario, we should have had 7 more points, because one of those field goals did get blocked.
Yeah, it got
tipped.
I
mean, it's not like he just pushed that one or anything. It got tipped. So, worst case scenario, it should have been 23-14.
At the end, after the final.
Right, at the end. But all that matters, we still got the win. It was an ugly win, full of, the whole game was full of some mistakes, some bad decisions. But this team proved that when it comes down to it, they are going to fight to the very end, and no matter what, pull out a win.
Well, I would rather have an ugly win than a pretty loss any day.
Well, it just speaks to the toughness of the team.
Well, I mean, if you're a team that no matter what's happening throughout the game, at the end somehow you still find a way to be ahead on the scoreboard, that's how you just win these gritty games that, both teams are making a lot of mistakes, but somehow in the end, you come out on top.
And there was no preseason. So
we knew they were going to have to knock the rust off.
Right. They have to knock the rust off. They didn't have any preseason snaps to get everyone in a rhythm. Yes, the Titans had 10 of 11 starters back on offense. You still need snaps together to fall into that rhythm and get back to what you were doing last year. We've seen that with a lot of teams, week one. Yes, we were hoping for more, but like we said, when it comes down to it, we have the win. I know after staying up late last night and then going to work today, it made work a little bit easier to get through, knowing that staying up that late wasn't, kind of burdened with a loss.
Yeah. Probably would have been a tough day at work had you went in after a Titans loss and you just had to have that going through the back of your mind all day long.
Yeah, it would have been a very long day.
It would have made it rough. We were talking about bad decisions earlier, and one bad decision that we need to talk about was Rashaan Evans. And I believe it was Jake Butt that he got into sort of an altercation with, ended up kind of, I guess, giving him a right hook into the face mask. And, it was a bad decision, and yeah, it was unnecessary roughness, personal foul, whatever you want to call it. And by the rules, he should have been out. Whether the NFL is going to look at it and make a ruling of whether he's going to be out more games, I think it would be ridiculous if he was. He was ejected for the rest of the game, didn't get to play any of it, and I think that's enough for what he did. I think it's probably a pretty fair punishment.
Yeah, I agree. It was one, punch, and there was really nothing else after that. they ejected him from the game. He left the field. Didn't really create an uproar about it. Yeah, I feel like that's enough of a punishment for it. And it was early in the game.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're talking about
him only spending like 2 minutes out of the game, and
right.
if he had done it in the fourth quarter.
So, I don't feel like the league should penalize him anymore. But we had guys, even when he was ejected, had guys step up and
absolutely. The
fill
boy,
in.
Will Compton, Nick Zubner come in, and he actually had a good stop on the goal line. David Long Jr., big fan of him, and I think he's a really good football player. He came in, played some good snaps. So we've got guys there at middle linebacker. We have the depth that players can step in and really just pick up where Rashaan Evans left off. Obviously, they're not going to be as effective as he is, or else they would be the starter. But they can come in and fill that position, and that's good to know that we have guys back there that can do that.
Also, shout out to Will Compton and Malcolm Butler. When our kicking game is struggling, we know that we're driving down the field, just need a field goal to win, and they go over to Gostowski, and Will Compton in the 2-minute break went over to him while he was kicking into the net, gave him a hug. I believe Malcolm Butler went over.
Sometimes you just need a hug.
Malcolm Butler went over.
That's all he needed.
And, just gave him some encouraging words. So, that's really big. That speaks to, these guys coming together as a team and that veteran leadership of going over there. I mean, Gostowski is a veteran. He's been in the league a while, made some big kicks.
Yep.
But
usually an accurate kicker.
Right. Sometimes it just takes another veteran guy or two coming over to you and
give you that reassurance.
Right. Just
know that they have your back. That's what he spoke on today, was that he was glad that he could make that kick for those guys because they wanted to win so badly, and he was glad that he could help contribute to that. And he talked about how the whole time he was missing these kicks, but the guys always had his back, and I think that actually did help him a lot there on that last field goal, kind of take the pressure off him a little bit. They're right there behind him, supporting him and all that.
Future games, we want those other field goals made.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it for this game, he made the one that matters. I mean, that's all that really matters.
But from this point forward, he doesn't have a lot of room for error. You missed 4 in this game. Going forward, you've got to start making kicks,
you do.
Or else you start looking and, there's not a lot of good kickers in free agency right now, or maybe would have already went and got one. I don't know. I think you give him another week. I know last night in the emotion of the game, and had he not made that game-winning field goal, it's probably a different conversation. But one more week, but going forward, you got to make those kicks. And if you're still missing, maybe look somewhere else, go a different direction. I know his $2.5 million as a veteran, he's already guaranteed that. But, I mean, you can't have people out there missing kicks all the time.
Well, when it comes down to it, again, going back to no preseason games, anything like that, a lot of these guys, not just, the kicker, but a lot of guys have rust that they have to knock off.
Yeah.
First game back kicking, yes, he's a vet. He's been doing this for many years, but he's with a new team, and maybe he just had some rust. He did have hip surgery.
Yeah, he had hip surgery and he was put on IR. So even though he did play last season, you've got all of that time that he was put on IR. That's extra time that he wasn't playing, just kind of accumulating that rust. And maybe this was a good game to get it all out of his system. And from here on, hopefully it's smooth sails. But
like you said, give him another week, see how he does. If the kicking troubles continue, then, I mean, you have to look somewhere else. But I think he'll turn it around. So now I want to get to who you have as the player of the game for the Titans, or the biggest impact player from last night's game.
Our star performer of the game, we kind of talked about this earlier today. I think it's got to be Corey Davis. You got to give him that title. He came out kind of like he had something to prove. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option, which, I mean, I'm not going to overreact. That's still a good decision. $15 million would have been too much to spend on him. but he came out and he played well. It was like every time we needed somebody to make a catch, there was Corey Davis coming across the middle and securing the catch and even taking it for a few more yards, giving
massive stiff
arms. That's kind of what the Titans are starting to become known for, is just stiff arming everybody.
Yeah, he stepped up, and I said this from whenever we first started our podcast, our YouTube. I expect him to have a big year. Part of that is partly because A.J. Brown is the number one guy, and teams are going to focus on him. So we needed Corey Davis to step up and be that wide receiver 2 for us and make things happen. And he made them happen last night. He caught 7 of his 8 targets, had 102 yards receiving, had a great catch along the sidelines.
Not really toe drag, but he somehow
heel drag.
Bent his foot, got his heel down.
I mean,
it was impressive.
And when he got his hands on the ball, he was coming down with it.
Yeah.
Adam Humphries also, man, some of the passes he caught last night where he was in the danger zone and took a shot. I don't know how he held on to those passes, but he did. And he only had, I believe he caught 6 of his 7 targets. So,
but listen, with Adam Humphries, as long as he's going out there on 3rd down and 3rd and medium, 3rd and short, and making the catches, that's when we need it. Those 3rd and short, maybe even 2nd and short. We need him to be that guy that can go out, run a good route, create some space, get open, and secure the ball. Just get the 1st down. He did a good job at that. Now some receivers. Khalif Raymond had some drops. I know we expected.
Had a tough game.
He had a tough game. I know we expected a lot out of him, and honestly, hoping he can kind of work through that moving forward. But you can't be making drops like that at the NFL level. Some of those were kind of tough throws, but they were in a position where an NFL receiver needs to make those catches.
You're right. Don't give up on him yet, though, guys. Like, he's still a young receiver. Big game up in Denver. First game of the season. Again, no preseason snaps. We've been seeing what he was doing in training camp, but, going against guys in practice every day and then going against a team that you haven't seen this year, obviously. I mean, it's going to be a little bit different. And
I'm hoping that he can work through it, because he can be a guy that teams aren't really expecting to, give him those little cuts and stuff. Cuts, kind of being a metaphor, is just running some of these short routes and just cutting away at him, and then obviously we know he's a deep threat, so eventually hitting him with a deep bomb. I really think he can be like a secret weapon, and so I hope he can start securing the ball. Maybe it was just, nerves. I don't know how you can be nervous after the catch that he made against the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs.
And jumping back to Corey Davis, I believe he wasn't even 100% for last night's game.
Well, we talked about how last season, he had the turf toe and all that stuff going on, and that could have been why he wasn't as impressive as some people thought last offseason that he might be.
Right, and I think it was maybe a hamstring injury whenever he was first listed on the injury report last week. But he made a comment that it's his goal whenever the team is traveling and he's traveling with them. That's a business trip to him. Like, he's going to do what he can to play.
Well, and point I was, we haven't seen, I don't think, a fully healthy Corey Davis for probably some time now. And so once that finally happens, it could be good.
Could be very good. Like I said, I liked what I seen last night. And, of course, we mentioned A.J. Brown. He had a little bit of a quiet night.
Yeah, he was quiet.
But he was, doing what number one receivers do in some cases, and that's taking the double teams and getting a lot of the attention. He caught 5 of his 8 targets for 39 yards. Had one pass that was overthrown that if he could have got to it would have been an easy touchdown.
Well, obviously, it would have sealed the game.
Oh, it would have sealed the game, but it was just a little overthrown. But man, he got off the line great on that play.
And I mean, that's right there on that audible where obviously it looked like they were set up to run, and we were looking at it, he was audible in the last second, almost looked like he wouldn't get the play off, and we're kind of like, no, just keep it how it is. Ryan Tannehill obviously saw something there, and A.J. Brown one-on-one beat his guy, obviously a little bit overthrown, but would have been a really, really good play had they connected.
That shows teams, though, you better be careful pressing him.
Yeah.
Especially down in the red zone, because if you press him and have just a single man covering him, he's probably going to beat him off the line and be open. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that play come up again later in the season.
Well, I mean, anytime you've got A.J. Brown one-on-one, you've got to take advantage of it.
You do.
So now, Jadeveon Clowney, we waited a long time this offseason, and the Titans put a lot of money towards him. Do you think it's worth it, and what did you see out of him last night?
Obviously, I think it's worth it. I mean, the guy had 1 week of practice, basically.
Only one time, actually, in pads.
Yeah, one time in full pads, and he played 80% of the snaps last night.
Mm-hmm.
Denver's first drive, for sure, Clowney was in the backfield like crazy.
He was just disrupting. He was disrupting.
Their first play, he went right around the right tackle.
Yeah.
I mean,
which was a replacement guy. They had Clowney over there, which was a good matchup. They had a backup in because Jawan James, he was out, and it was just a good play. Clowney attacking there, getting around, and he was just disrupting all game long. Anytime that I saw Drew Lock kind of trying to extend the play and get away from pressure, it was like Clowney and his dreads were right there after him.
Yep. One play where he was supposed to be containing, though, dove in on the running back, and Locke was able to get out of the pocket. But again, that's just some rust, not having played, and
it's just one of those decisions where he was trying to make a play, go after the running back, and overshot. Locke kept it.
Again, though, I'm happy with what we've seen from
Clowney. Absolutely.
Only been with the team for a week, only have 1 fully padded practice, and he was already making plays. He still doesn't, he said that there's still more of the defense he needs to learn, that he's still not in, football shape yet, and that he expects things to just get better.
Only get better from here, yeah.
I mean, I was happy with last night, but I'm also going to be really excited to see what...
I think that when he is 100% and he knows the defense, he is going to be he was already disrupting things, but he is just going to be wrecking things for opposing offenses. And he's really going to open up Harold Landry, which, he didn't get to do as much as I wanted him to last night, but which by the time this gets uploaded will probably be 2 nights ago, Monday night. But Harold Landry still, he had a good game. He was getting in the backfield. He had that one play where he got a quarterback hit and messed up Locke's throw. Could have been really, really bad had he not done that, because one of our corners was beat. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it could have been bad.
It could have been. Like we talked about, Clowney opens things up for other people.
Yep.
And I believe Landry had 2 quarterback hits, and like you talked about, that one was huge.
Yeah.
So it caused an incomplete pass.
Probably saved the game.
And I'm really happy with our defense last night. We still need to work on covering good tight ends, but overall, really impressed. Had the goal line stand again. Denver should have looked back at the game against the Chargers last year.
Melvin Gordon could have told him. He should have told him that.
And realized
it's not going to work against the Titans.
Right, that's not going to work. Simmons, man, he's looking good.
I was excited to see him obviously he's had a whole off season where he's fully healthy now, and he's ready to go. He's dropped some weight down to 305. He looks good. Talk about disrupting stuff. He was disrupting stuff. And that goal line stand on the kind of shuffle pass to Jake Butt, he gets off of his block. There's an offensive lineman coming over with Jake Butt. Shuffle pass, he pretty much tackles them both.
Yeah, like you said, he was disrupting plays too. He was getting in the backfield. Also had the big fumble recovery that, Kevin Byard coming in, making plays like we know he does.
Yeah.
I mean, that was huge. That got us a little bit of momentum. Our offense had been kind of stagnant up until that point, and allowed us to go down and get the touchdown to tie the game up. I'm really happy with how our defense was able to play, especially missing, Rashaan Evans and Adoree Jackson. I mean, two key parts to our defense, and guys stepped up and made plays.
You got Harold Landry, who played pretty much every snap.
He did play every snap.
And, I mean, that's probably going to change when Vic Beasley finally gets into the picture. I'm excited for that. I think that's going to take our pass rush to a whole nother level. But, I mean, that's one of those things where last season we had Harold Landry in all the time, and we can't have that this year. We've got to have a good mix. I know Vic Beasley was out, and that was probably the reason that he had to play a little extra, but we can't have that because he's going to get burnt out. We've got to keep a good rotation, like we've been talking about, keep those guys in there fresh so that they can be 100% rushing the passer every play. But yeah, I was really happy with our pass rush, and I think that we got an example of what happens when your pass rush is good, and even if your secondary is slacking, it still makes them look a little bit better. Because we were missing Adoree Jackson, and that did hurt. Chris Jackson actually got the start at slot, and I was actually kind of happy to see that because, as you know, last week we were talking about Chris Jackson. I said I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with his play on special teams. He didn't do anything special getting in and playing slot corner. He wasn't able to make any huge plays or anything, and he did have his fair share of mistakes, just like Christian Fulton did. But also, we're not looking at him and saying, he blew coverage several times and cost us this game. He went in there and, I mean, I would say he played fair. Yeah,
I think he had a good first game.
Yeah.
Considering, and I know I keep going back to this, but...
considering the rust and considering...
Well, no, not even the rust for him. Just
him being a rookie and it being his first game.
Exactly. I mean, last night's game for Titans fans should have showed us why the preseason is important because it lets you get in a rhythm and adjust to the speed of the game. That's the big thing with rookies in any sport. When you move up to the next level, they talk about how the speed of the game changes, and you have to be able to adjust to that.
Yeah.
And, no preseason to do that. You just have to go out there. He did play more snaps. He was out on the field for more snaps than Fulton was. Well, and I believe that is because Fulton missed some practices.
Yeah, because of an injury.
Right.
I think you're right. That's probably the only reason that happened. But I like seeing Chris Jackson out there, and I think we're probably going to see a fair share of him until Adoree Jackson comes back, and then hopefully he still gets mixed in a little bit.
I think he will, and it speaks to, just looking at last night's game, I feel a little bit better about our cornerback depth whenever we do have everyone back healthy.
It's a little scary when we don't have Adoree Jackson.
Right.
But when we do have him, I just feel that much better about the guys that are behind him. And if Chris Jackson can develop into, a decent corner or better, then that could be huge for this team.
It could be.
Just having another guy there, and maybe him and Christian Fulton can come up together and develop into some good corners, and we can have a really good core there with those two and Adoree Jackson.
I agree. And guy we haven't mentioned yet, Vicario.
And, we've mentioned Byard, but we haven't talked much about him.
almost had the interception last night.
Mm-hmm.
Just off of the fingertips, but he was. I feel like he played a pretty good game. Did have the penalty which it didn't really matter because Fant caught the touchdown pass anyway. But again, just some rust there, and he's going to get better.
They're going to keep laying stuff on the rust.
First game of the season. I mean, it was like we talked about.
Anything that goes wrong weeks 1 through 8 is rust.
No, I'm not saying weeks 1 through 8. I'm just saying week 1. You could see that there's a lot of things that they need to improve on.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So
I just like making fun of you.
Jumping back to the offensive side of the ball.
Whoa! I haven't even gotten my chance to talk about Vicario yet. Vicario, sometimes he can be a guy that doesn't get completely noticed like the rest of these guys do, and it's really just because he goes out there and does his job, and so you really don't. He's almost, as far as recognition, he's almost like an offensive lineman. When you don't recognize Vicario, it's because maybe he didn't get an interception that game, or maybe he didn't force a fumble that game, but he's out there doing his job. He's keeping receivers from catching the ball. Maybe he's covering a tight end, stopping the run, and he just goes out there and plays good football.
Also, I mean, kind of to the point you were making, if you don't hear about him,
that also means making mistakes.
That also means he didn't get beat for a deep play.
Yeah.
So, also, since we're staying on the defensive side right now, Daquan Jones.
You didn't hear from him.
Didn't hear much from him, but big body on the inside of that line. He was blowing up some plays, everything. Obviously, without going back and breaking down the film, you don't really see too much of it. But if you go back and look at the film, I'm sure you're going to see him forcing runs a different way. Maybe taking the double team to allow someone else to be able to get back into the backfield.
Sometimes his impact is subtle, whereas a Jeffrey Simmons or a Clowney, I'm telling you, rushing from the middle, Clowney coming to the inside, whether it be on a run play, pass down, whatever, that's dangerous, and I like it. But with Jeffrey Simmons and Clowney, you can see these guys sometimes, and they are just visually, you can see them
getting into the
wrecking
backfield
stuff. Right. And really disrupting stuff. I think sometimes Daquan Jones, I think he does his fair share of that, but it's subtle, and you don't notice it as much.
Now, jumping back to the offensive side.
Okay.
Derrick Henry, 31 carries for 116 yards, caught 3 passes for 15 yards.
Yeah.
Last night, we kind of had our opinions on him. Didn't think that he was maybe running as hard as he should. I thought there were some times where he was doing too much dancing around and not just putting his foot in the ground and going upfield. But overall, for first game of the season, I feel like it was a pretty solid performance. Averaged about 3.7 yards per carry. It's not the 5 yards per carry that we were used to at the end of last season, but
I think it's a decent performance. I think you're not going to be mad at your running back ever for having that performance, but you're also not looking at it and you're like, man, this is King Henry. I mean, obviously, we kind of, you said this earlier, we kind of got spoiled by Derrick Henry at the end of last season, just because he was going on a tear, and he did this last season against the Broncos. He just kind of struggles against them a little bit.
But
he put together a fair game.
This year's completely different from last year's game against them. Last year he had, 29 rushing yards against them?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. But
this year he had 116.
I know. That's why. Listen, don't get on me about this. I'm saying he had a decent game. You're never going to be mad at your running back about that kind of game. But it's not jumping out at you. While you're watching it, you're not just completely floored by the way that he's playing. Well, but you look back at it, and hey, I'll take that. It's
right. And the Broncos defense, they were very sound. Yeah. They were good against the run.
They had it together, yeah.
I mean, they made sure that they didn't over pursue. They were filling the gaps. They were doing what they needed to do. So, like I said, decent game from Henry. Whenever he rushes for 100 or more yards,
I mean,
the Titans are 14-0.
Yeah.
So, that's the formula for them winning. Henry has over 100 yards, they win.
Well, it was my key to the game. Don't go away from the run. And even though he wasn't breaking big runs, they stayed consistent with it, stuck with the run, and it was successful.
It was. And I believe he will, a lot of this, players struggling a little bit, just got to get better football.
Just got to knock that rust off.
No, got to get better conditioning.
Yeah.
Get more in football shape.
I think that would fall in with the rust.
Yeah, I mean,
and you
haven't really had contact.
Well, you got to consider the fact also they were in Denver, breathing that thin air.
Yep.
And I mean, coming in as a first game, that's tough. We've talked about how Denver has an insane advantage home games early in the season because of that fact, especially the first game of the season, because you got to know that it is so hard to come in first game of the season, especially with no preseason. Because, I mean, veterans, they probably just go through the motion in preseason and stuff like this. But going through the motions can help you get into game shape even. So,
yeah, so, just, like I was saying, getting used to the contact, everything like that, he's gonna do what he does.
Yeah.
He's gonna show
I don't have
why
any concerns about Derrick Henry at all. He's gonna be just fine. He's gonna be the Derrick Henry that we extended. The reason that we extended him, wanted to keep him long term. The reason that John Robinson broke the code of don't pay running backs long term is because Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, and he's going to continue to just be one of the best running backs in the league.
Yep. And before we jump to Ryan Tannehill, need to mention Jonnu Smith right quick. He had a touchdown.
I got stuff to say on this. So
had a touchdown catch. He looked really good. Slipping out of the backfield, catching some screen passes, moved the sticks for us. I mean, I've said it for him too, because he's going to be our number one tight end this year. He's going to have a big year.
Yeah. I think that Arthur Smith has got to start getting Jonnu Smith more opportunities in open field. Get him the ball in an opportunity where he's got space to work around him, and he's going to make plays.
Oh yeah, he's got good speed. He can pull away from guys. We've seen it on that screen play where he slipped out of the backfield, and I think it was like 3rd and 20 or something like that early in the game. He caught that pass.
I was exhausted.
Was gone. Now jumping to Ryan Tannehill.
Okay, there's kind of, just let me get this out of the way. There's kind of this, I don't know, some people feel like Ryan Tannehill didn't play a good game. And, I mean, I respect your opinion, but I disagree with that. If you feel that way, I disagree with that. I think that Ryan Tannehill did play a good game. He, other than that one interception, which obviously was called back. So, he got saved there. That was a huge break. But, I mean, I really do. I think he played a good game. And for the most part, he was safe with the ball. There was that one.
There was a couple of questionable
throws, questionable decisions. There was that one time where he slipped up in the pocket, and Lewan was doing a good job blocking his guy, but then he slipped up out of the pocket and got rocked. I mean, he got hit hard.
He took a shot,
and that was a little scary. He, if you're gonna slip out of the pocket like that, go, go get a few yards, get down. But, he made good decisions. He made good throws. He did not look like Drew Lock. Drew Lock
was slings
the ball. I mean, he made his fair share of bad decisions, but he throws the ball so hard. Ryan Tannehill's throws didn't look like that, but he was making good ones. He was putting them in good spots. A lot of the ones to Corey Davis, it was in a place where only Corey Davis could get it, and, of course, he was going up and getting them. Like we said, he was going up, getting his hands on it, and bringing it down.
Well, like you said, I don't think that Tannehill had a bad game.
No, absolutely.
Like everyone else in that game last night, I feel like he had a decent to good game. Like we mentioned, there was a couple questionable passes and decisions that he made, but overall, I feel like it was some good quarterback play. He made the right decisions. He was finding Corey Davis, who was open a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm happy with it. And he proved that it's not just a hand the ball to Derrick Henry 30 times and I'm only going to throw 20 times. He had like 40-something pass attempts. And I think completed like 29 of them, something like that. So, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I was happy with it too. Overall, it was a sloppy game, and there were lots of mistakes, but there were a lot of good things that came out of it, and we got to see a lot about the team.
I expect things from week 1 to week 2 when we play the Jags this next week at home. I think you're going to see a big difference in the play.
Yeah.
I think they're going to clean up a lot of the problems that they had, a lot of the sloppiness of their plays. I think there's going to be a big difference, and I'm looking forward to this game against the Jaguars.
I agree with that. If you want to hear more about the game with the Jaguars that is coming up next Sunday, make sure that you're subscribed to us on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app that you use. It is Titans Time. Also, check us out on Twitter, Titans_time. Check out our Instagram, Titans Time Podcast, and our website, titanstimepodcast.com.
Also, check out our Facebook, Titans Time. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on the post notifications, leave us a like, drop us a comment, let us know how we're doing, anything else you might want to hear. Let us know your thoughts on the game. Make sure to comment that below and let us know what you thought about the game. Leave us some questions. We make sure to answer them. We check it every day.
Yeah.
This has been Titans Time, and as always, tighten up. Okay.
And I'm fixing to have to take over.
No, I got this. Did I not butcher prime time?
I didn't think so.
Tighten up. Let me hear you say it. All my people on Broadway, tell them boys to tighten up. Oh, tell them boys to tighten up. Tighten up.